struggling with asking. And I have been focusing a lot on receiving.
Asking doesn't require words.
Oh. Okay.
In other words, knowing what you don't want causes you to ask for what you do want. Think about all of the beasts on your planet who are asking without words.
So maybe it is my receiving.
Maybe it is your receiving that
I'm not receiving, that I'm not in a receptive mode.
Here, we can clear this up really easily for you. So sometimes people say, Abraham, you're making us feel schizophrenic, or we think you are. They'll say, because you say step one's already taken care of and so is step two, so just relax and allow it. And then you say, think about what you want, talk about what you want, script about what you want. And so what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to get very clear and very focused and shine in a crisis and be very deliberate creation? Or am I supposed to just let go and let it be? And we say you have to know where you are in any moment to know whether it's time to turn on the gas or step on the gas. And here's what we mean. This will be easier to hear than ever before. Let's approach it from, am I on the upper half of the scale, the emotional scale? Am I feeling pretty good? Or am I on the lower half of the scale? So the tendency is for most people to be on the lower half of the scale. They're worried, or they're anxious, or they're frustrated, or they're overwhelmed. And that's when they want to get very specific about making their life better. But when they try to be specific, when they feel like that, it's like it just increases the resistance. It's like trying too hard. It's trying to do with effort and action and focus what vibration will do, but it's trying to compensate for not being in that receiving place. So if you are more aware of where you're coming from, so let's say that you're feeling frisky and happy and exhilarated, that's the time to think about what you want and why you want it. Don't try to be a problem solver. Be a basker about things that are going well. That will make all the difference in the world. Sometimes when Esther feels overwhelmed because there are a lot of things happening all at the same time around her world, and sometimes she'll get very action-oriented and she'll computerize her to-do list. And every time she gets into that place, life stops being fun. And it gets harder. More obstacles show up. And so when you're aware of how you feel, rather than trying to make things happen through your action, you are doing something that feels good. So Esther has discovered that a very quick remedy for her is to pick something that she likes to do, like move furniture around. Now, some would say previous experiences with her mother, or previous experiences with teachers, or previous experiences with anybody. They would say, why are you focused upon this frivolous thing that has nothing to do with the problems that you need to deal with right now? And the answer is, dealing with problems makes them worse, and dealing with fun makes it more. And you can tell by the way you feel whether you're in the receiving mode or not. And if we could just help you to get it, if we could just knock you over the head now, I don't mean it, well, a little. If we could make the point so strong that you could hear that I've done the work and my inner being and law of attraction are already gathering up cooperative components, and all that is necessary now is that I become one of the cooperative components, and I do that through chilling, through relaxing, through basking, through taking a nap. And we know it's counterintuitive. It's not what those who need things from you tell you. The analogy that we gave to Esther that puts this into perspective. Jerry always carried a fire extinguisher in their vehicle. And in all the time that Jerry and Esther were roaming the earth together, often he stopped and helped somebody put out an engine fire, because they were common, especially some years ago, and he knew what to do and wanted to do it, so he always had a fire extinguisher or two in his vehicle. And Esther sort of liked the man riding in on the big white horse with the big white hat and doing that. She thought that was a nice thing. So we use that analogy and we say to Esther, so you come across someone whose car's on fire, And you don't walk up to them and say, I'd like to meditate with you. Let's just meditate. You don't say, let's pray together. You get out the fire extinguisher. So what you want to be clear about is that when is it good, or you might even say necessary, to take some action. And we would like it if you all would not get yourselves in a jam where you need to get out the fire extinguisher, where you're listening and tuned. But sometimes you got to get out the fire extinguisher. And it doesn't mean you're bad, and it doesn't mean you're wrong, and it doesn't mean you're not a good creator. It just means you're still finding your way with utilizing your understanding of the way the laws of the universe work. So the rule of thumb is the better you feel, the more you think about things that matter to you. And the worse you feel, the more you don't think about anything. Because whatever you're thinking about, you're trending in the direction of. And so,
I am a psychologist, and I have a podcast that brings me great joy that I've been doing for a few years that's actually gotten international, and it's pretty big now. But I don't make money from it because I started it as a give. But I would like to shift because I get so excited about my podcast, and I love doing it so much, and I love the emails that come and all that, really changing lives. I'd like to switch where that was making money, and I have a lot of trouble asking.
Esther doesn't monetize anything online like that, but there are a lot of people that are monetizing Esther's work like that. In other words, there are ways to do it. So just set forth the intention. How do I turn what I do into something that brings financial benefit to me?
I kind of know that part. It's more that
then get
feel... I often notice that my feelings are in a lower vibration about asking. Like somehow, in being in a helping profession, you're not, supposed to... If you're making money in that way,
is this cruise
then it's
free?
not right. No.
The ship sort of wanted some money from you?
They did take it.
And there was a portion that you're paying for this seminar?
Yeah.
We're waiting to see if Esther's guilt is kicking in. Nope.
I feel like sometimes that's why it's not coming, because I know that there's this wobble in it, in my ask. And I'm finding
some years ago,
it hard
Jerry and
to
Esther knew
figure
a
out.
lady who owned a gift shop in a hotel. And she sold lovely things, silver and turquoise and other gems. It was in a southwestern city. And one day, she was getting ready to go to the place where she bought the jewelry, to a marketplace of some sort. And she left a note for the woman who was going to watch the shop while she was away. And she said, let's mark everything in this case by 1/2. And then she was gone for a week, and when she came back, everything except 1 or 2 items in that case was sold. And she said to the friend who had watched over her store for her, marking it down like that really helped, didn't it? And she said, I misunderstood your note. I doubled the price on everything in that cabinet. And Esther said, that's the way I buy turquoise and silver. The more expensive it is, the better I like it. The more I believe in its value. And so we said to Jerry and Esther in the early days, because they wondered about that, we said, it doesn't need to be this way, but it often is. That people equate the value that they're going to receive with what it costs, or even with the sacrifice. We talked about that earlier. And so set your prices high enough that it feels like it's of value to them, but not so high that they can't easily reach it. And so they set their prices in 1989 and have not changed them since, because they found that balance. And you can't compare your price with anyone else. At the very first, they weren't even conducting it. They were invited to be there. And the woman who was the orchestrator of it said, everyone here does private consultations, and so you should too, and you should charge this much money. And so people signed up for it. A lot of people signed up for it right away. And Esther remembers the very first person, when it was time for them to hand her some money, she felt so odd about it. And then it turned out that the tape recorder that Jerry had turned on to record it hadn't worked. And so since they didn't have a tape to give him, Esther said, oh, never mind. In other words, it felt so odd. But by the end of that day, Esther was realizing that there is value being exchanged. And so isn't there always value being exchanged? In other words, when you go to the grocery store, do they say to you, oh, never mind? Or do you go to the grocery store and say, I just thought maybe you'd make an exception with me? You have to feel that you're offering value. Everything is a reciprocal in and out, in and out, in and out. There's no right or wrong in this. You couldn't decide how much anyone's time is worth. It's like when you are paid by the hour for something. This is worth this much per hour. And Esther thinks there are not enough hours in the world to justify the dollars that are flowing into my experience. And we explain it's not about that. It's not about expenditure of action. It's about attraction of desire. And there is enough abundance of all manner for everyone to receive all that they are wanting. There is such confusion about how that works. How does the economy expand anyway? It's not that long ago that you were exchanging beads and shells. No value is being trucked in from other places. In other words, as a society, you are defining and deciding the value that you are giving and taking, that you are receiving and yielding. And so you just have to decide that you are worthy of receiving. And until you do, others won't agree with you.
Right. I'm realizing as we're talking that I know that what I give is very high value, but I'm not putting myself as high value. And so there's the
Well, how do you
wobble.
separate one from the other?
I'm not sure.
That's wonky.
It's wonky.
That makes no sense. It's the way you are justifying not letting yourself have something
Right.
that you want because you don't believe that you should have something that you want.
Yep.
Somehow you've come to believe that you are here to give. We had this conversation just a little bit ago. We were talking in terms of energy, of replenishment. But in order for you to put yourself somewhere, a lot of money is being exchanged.
Yep.
And so everyone understands that. Where's the hang up with you?
I think that's why I'm asking. Yeah, I'm not sure where that is.
Think about how illogical that is.
It is. As I say it out loud, I realize how ridiculous it is.
Maybe it's because what you're doing, it was not so difficult for Esther to understand when Jerry said, we need to start it the way we want it to end up. He was older and wiser. And he also said, it has to pay for itself or it isn't working.
Yeah.
Well, if there's no expenditure going out, then maybe there isn't anything for it to pay for except your time. And if you put no value on your time, then maybe you think that there's an even exchange. Where if you were going to a hotel room or to a ship or to some place where there is an expense involved, then it would have been easier for you to at least recoup what you were paying out. And that might have primed the pump for you. It primed the pump for Esther. As long as we break even, we're happy. As long as we break even, we're happy. That's kind of where you're at.
Well, that's where it is, and I want it to shift.
But in time, you begin to understand that breaking even, let's talk about breaking even. This is the breakthrough that you're going to have. Let's talk about breaking even in terms of what is even, meaning giving and receiving, giving and receiving, giving and receiving. So you just want to be the one that just gives and gives and gives? That's not balance. You're just giving and they're just getting, and you're not getting, you're just giving. That's jacked up. That's like breathing all the air out and never breathing any air in. That's not going to last very long. And before long, it is our promise to you, you will find yourself in a place of resentment. It feels uncomfortable to ask for it and have it be a vibrational version and not allow it to flow into your experience. That's the wobble. The wobble isn't that you don't deserve it. The wobble is that you do deserve it, that you have attracted it, and that you're not letting it in. And the reason you're not letting it in is because you've been trending with some thoughts that have been offered by who? In other words, who are the shortage consciousness people that are convincing you that you shouldn't receive?
Well, that was my parents, but yeah.
We know that. It's nice for you to acknowledge that, but listen to this statement. You can't get poor enough to help poor people become prosperous. You cannot get confused enough to help confused people have clarity. And so, what are you going to do? Thrive. Thrive.